Welcome back, everybody. I'm sorry for the delay for chapter 256, which we are covering today. I just didn't see it, and I know it's now been a month since it's come out, but I still want to talk about it because what a chapter it is. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And for anybody who needs a quick recap, the previous chapter ended with Alan waking up from the seed of truth and telling Lucia and Hazim that Bookman Jr., or the previous Lavi, is a part of his soul, causing them to act, and Lucia to sing this song that seemingly purges the poison that would have killed him from the seed of truth. And this is kind of where the story kind of picks back up, where they talk more about the seed of truth and this song that Lucia apparently sang, which it seems like it's an impossible feat for most people to be able to do something like purging these mystical ancient items like the seed of truth. But there are a few people within the Bookman who are specialized, like Lucia seemingly is, that can do this. And that's why after she sings, she does faint, because it shortens her lifespan the same way the seed would have killed Alan. And I do appreciate that it actually was going to take Alan out, and it wasn't just an empty bluff to see what is Alan's resolve in figuring this out. But nonetheless, it gives us a little additional context here on why she started singing, and it's nice additional context because we didn't really know what was going to happen. We obviously knew Alan wasn't going to pass away in chapter 255 or even in like chapter 251, which I believe is when he actually takes the seed, but it still is nice to get this additional context on why this happens like this, as well as the fact of like Lucia understanding like the circumstances of why she was willing to help Alan as well. So we cut back, and this is probably a day later, maybe a few days later, after he is like purged of the seed's poison, and he's still resting, and he's finally waking up, and he hears Johnny and Link fighting, and it seemingly is Johnny is trying to give Alan this give Link this like medicine that was used on Kondo, which honestly, I'm sorry, this is one of the few things I just don't remember. I tried to look back for it. Like the medicine bottle itself has the number 56 on it, which might be the chapter it was in. But apparently Kondo did take this medicine, but Link is really opposed to taking it. He's like, I was already helped by the Bookmen, or I guess the Zoogles, more accurately, and I feel better because he's been using the Atuda, which is like the spirit that he has that allows him to heal people, to heal Alan following the Seed of Truth trial and him being, I guess, pseudo in a coma or like just not waking up yet. But anyways, Alan is waking up to all of this, and he's like, what's going on? And then Link immediately flicks him, being like, this is what you get. You caused us so much trouble taking in the seed of truth immediately, not even consulting us, making us worry like this. And it's like this flick, which hurts Alan. It's like, this makes us even. It's a way of like him showing some anger, but showing more so that he cares about Alan and doesn't want Alan continuously doing these risks that he continues to do. And Johnny is kind of in the same way here, where he's like, I understand your goals of still wanting to be an exorcist, which is what he says to Lena Lee before he leaves the Order following the Apocryphus fight, well, the first Apocryphus fight. But he's like, you keep like putting yourself at risk and not caring about the people around you, like me, like Link, like all these other people from the Order, like Lena Lee. And like you just continue to kind of make us scared and suffer from all the stuff you are dealing with without letting us help you. And this then cuts back to the scene in the rewinding town in the Miranda arc, in which Alan kind of yells at Lena Lee because Lena Lee prevents Alan from trying to destroy the level 2 Akumas that Road self-destructed. And when an Akuma gets destroyed by a way that isn't innocence, it gets swallowed up by dark matter and is not like saved, which is why Alan kind of in his left eye always tries to, and in that moment tried to save those Akuma's souls at the risk of his own. And that's why Lena Lee says, I hate that left eye of yours, because you kind of don't value your own life. You kind of value the lives of Akumas more than yourselves, which is still something that's important, but you need to find that balance in there. And Alan's kind of realizing this more and more about how he can't just shoulder everything on his own, despite kind of wanting to not put anyone else at risk. He also apologizes to Link as well. And he's really kind of struggling here, because most people would be in Alan's situation of having a Noah kind of seemingly continuously try to take over you, while also trying to protect your friends, but learning the truth without learning the truth through the Noah memories. It's a lot of awkwardness that I'm sure Alan is struggling with, but like he's trying to shoulder it all as his own. And people like Johnny, who care for him so much, hate to see Alan continuously do this. Johnny literally left the order in order to search for Alan at his own risk, because this was something that also happened a long time ago in the manga because of how the chapters are paced. But when somebody typically leaves the order, they have to be like mind wiped, so they don't remember any of the stuff that happens at the order. But Johnny, with the help of the other scientists, escapes so that he has his memories, so that he's leaving to find and help Alan. So he's just like, it's so tough to keep seeing Alan risk himself like this because of how close their friendship is. And while Alan's like, I'm so sorry, I want to return, it's just so difficult. And sorry for scaring you. You kind of see Johnny like with a bit of a like sniffle in one of the panels, kind of holding back crying. And following this, he then like apologizes to Link as well, because Link had to use his lifespan with the Etuda to heal Alan more. And we get this fun panel of Link being like super cool, like, oh, it's fine, it doesn't matter at all. And Alan like with full on bowing. And Johnny's like, that right there, you'll better cut that crap too, dang nabbit. Which is just like such fun words. But before we get to anything else, like Link wants to know what Alan saw with the Seed of Truth, which Lucia then cuts him off, and she's kind of has an IV attached to her because, as mentioned earlier in the chapter, her purging the Seed of Truth poison does come at a cost for herself. And she's like, don't say this here. There's somebody else at the mansion itself that needs to hear it as well, so save that till we get to the mansion. So they're like, let's head out. But Hazim is like, stop acting like you're ready to go. You also are recovering, which is weird, which is something we'll get to later in the chapter. We actually get to see Lucia fight a little bit, and she seems perfectly fine, and I don't think we hold off for her to fully recover. But Hazim's like, you have to recover as well, Master. And once again, Hazim calls her Master again, which is something mentioned in the previous chapter, where it seemingly was reversed, but I guess it is revealed that Lucia does hold higher status within the Zeugles or the Bookman clan than Hazim does. Something you could probably imagine anyways, given that all the way back, and I don't remember the exact chapter number, we do see a young Lucia at the Campbell Mansion, potentially implying that she has some ties to the Campbell family, or just it was always under the Bookman's protection, following as something we'll get to in like 3 pages. But she essentially says, Alan risked his life with the Seed of Truth. I have to be willing to risk mine too to match his level of resolve. So with all that said, Hazim kind of backs off a little bit, and Lucia's like, I'll lead you guys to the mansion. And we learn the truth that the way to the mansion is actually fully through the Zeugle bookshop. It is something that Cross Marion set up himself, furthermore proving that Cross was in the memory of in chapter 221 when Alan is in Nea's world and Cross comes to him, that the only way to the Campbell Mansion is through the Zeugle bookshop, because he seals it off with magic. As we know, Cross is one of the few sorcerers in the story that we have been introduced to, and the only route in is through a crack on the top of the Zeugle bookshop. The rest is kind of fully under the protection of this spell that I imagine even the Earl probably can't find that easily. And it's fully hidden from the world besides this one area. So they end up going through the portal, which was opened by Nea, but like the seal was created by Cross. So like Cross and Nea, we don't fully know their connection so far, but I do have theories here, and I feel like this might be as good of a time as any to make one. I could wait till later in this chapter, but I digress. I think it's clear that Cross is the one who allows Nea to transfer his memories into Alan, the old previous Alan that prior to being remade by Apocryphus, because we just see all the other Noahs, they don't have to send their memories through another person of their picking. Everybody else, just when they pass away, the Noah memories will automatically go to another host and wake up years into their life, which is what we saw with Wisely, when Wisely awoke of his Noah memories. Unlike Nea, who purposely has to pick somebody. And that is probably because after Nea's failed coup of the Noahs and loses to the Earl and gets reabsorbed, he isn't really a memory. Like all the other memories are an emotion, a key factor of the Noahs. And we don't even know if the Earl himself does also change. If he loses, will he come back in 30 years? No, probably once the Earl is gone, the Earl is probably permanently gone. Same with Nea, because Nea is just part of the Earl. So I imagine Cross does this unique magic that allows him to transfer his memories like a normal Noah would be able to, which does track given all the feats that Cross has had, being able to create golems like he does, create barriers, convert an Akuma into a being working for him rather than the Earl, hide his presence. It's a bunch of stuff that we just haven't seen Cross do, as well as the fact that simply he is the only exorcist with 2 innocents. So he just kind of has it all. And I'm sure we're going to get more of Cross, because in this chapter we actually find out Cross is the current head of the Campbell family, which I might be jumping the gun a little bit by saying this now, but the point of what I'm saying is we still don't know if Cross is alive, but this chapter either confirms that the Campbells in fact know he is, or like my theory suggests, with Cross being the one to transfer Nea's memories into Alan, maybe after he is staying with Alan following Mana's death, he ends up like growing attached to Alan and adds like a piece of his own essence into Nea's world to like communicate with Alan and help the transition, and had Alan have chosen to continue fighting, he would respect Alan's choices and then tell him about the Zoogle Bookshop, which he does in chapter 221, ultimately leading to where we are now. But they're all like kind of caught off guard by how big and beautiful this land is. And for anybody who's wondering, it seems like Cornelia has guarded the land since ancient times. Cornelia is that tree that just doesn't grow leaves, the one we constantly see in front of the mansion itself. Now, I don't know if the tree is something of a medium in which allowed Cross to put the protective barrier around the mansion, so much so that it's a 20-minute walk from where they enter to the mansion, which means it probably has a pretty large radius of his protective barrier, but I could just be overthinking this. So nonetheless, they start walking over to the mansion, and we see the cutaway once again to chapter 221, or it might be 222, of saying this is the place where Alan Walker disappears, where the path ends. And once again, obviously, Cross in this chapter later on says, if you want to continue fighting, go to the Campbell Mansion, but the Campbell Mansion is also the inner world of Nea, what Nea's inner world looks like. So it could be something of a foreboding thing where he comes to the mansion. And as we all know, from a while back, the reason he comes to the mansion is to kind of learn about the history without learning about it through Nea memories. When he learns Nea memories, Nea will take over. Maybe if he reads it from a book or the bookman's logs, it won't be a memory, and hence he can stay in control of himself while understanding who Nea is. So, interestingly here, as they start walking to the mansion, he says, "I'm back," which is interesting. You could argue it's like this is the inner world. Alan has seen it before, but we even see Johnny look at Alan and see Naya, and he is just like, "What's happening?" And this might be something of Naya's subconscious coming out, as the Campbell Mansion is a place that he reminisces on, somewhere so important that his inner world is there. But Johnny is the only one who sees Naya at this moment and is like shocked. And as he continues to say Alan just turns around and it's still Alan's face. But there is that thing of a foreboding that was mentioned previously of just simply when the callback of Cross saying this is where Alan's path ends and will disappear. And now Johnny is even seeing Naya before anything even starts. But obviously they just kind of continue walking, and then they see this weird rabbit golem that kind of catches them all off guard. Alan notes that it's not affecting, his eye isn't turning on, so it's not an Akuma. Johnny's kind of holding on to the back of it, and then Alan is kind of held in the hand of it and pretty much taken out of commission right this second, before Link tries to use his feathers, which are like his talismans. For anyone who forgets all that while back, that Link was part of the church and was a member of the Crows, in which you're using talismans to restrict. Before Lucia says, "You're wasting your feathers," which either implies that Lucia is just handling it, or these golems may be immune to the talismans that are created, which could make sense, as we do see all the way back in the Alma Karma arc, when Cross had a spell in Tim Campy that was used despite him being locked up by the Crow's talismans, or the Third's talismans. But nonetheless, we do see Lucia just instantly one-shot this golem, which does bring up a few other points as well, of simply how recovered is she, given the fact that earlier in the chapter she does seem heavily fatigued but doesn't really stop at all. Also, is this the potential Bookman's fighting techniques? As we do know, before the 35-year-ago event with Naya, the Bookmen were typically on fair terms with the Noah, which was stated back in like the early chapter, like 180s through 190s, somewhere there, when we do find that Bookman and Lavi were taken by the Noah to learn about the 14th and his weaknesses. So maybe this was their fighting technique that allowed them to at least get some respect from characters like the Earl, that as I reread those chapters before making this review, seemingly Bookman did have a speaking relationship of sorts with the Earl. But potentially, as this is mentioned to be the Guardian, or one of the Guardians that Cyrus, Campbell, or Marion Cross creates, potentially there's just a weak spot that if you are a member of the group that can go into the Campbell Mansion with permission, you just know how to defeat these. And it's not actually a difficult thing or a feat for Lucia as much as it's a knowing the passcode thing for Lucia. But after she does that, the golem kind of ceases to exist and kind of is just left as the carpet that's on its back. And Alan kind of gets up, and they're all super confused. While as Lucia mentions, it is a security device. Similar to Tim Campy, it could be considered Tim Campy's brother, as it is another golem created by Cross. As we get his big reveal being that he is a Campbell and a member of Naya and Mana's kin, potentially not making him either a part of Naya and Mana bloodline, so a bloodline relative of a Noah, or a member of the Campbell family, but not a member of Naya and Mana's specific bloodlines. We'll have to wait and see on that. I'm sure we're going to get more information as that comes up, but they are all shocked by this revelation, as well as the fact that he is the head of the Campbell family. And the way they are talking about him, once again, as we could all assume, Cross Marion is still probably alive. I don't know how, I don't know when specifically he'll come back, but given what we saw in chapters 221, given like the sorcery in the Alma Karma arc, I think there is more that needs to be done and explored with Cross Marion. That I'd hate if General Cross is just out of the story outside of just flashbacks for the Campbells. But before this ends, we do get to cut away to seeing Lavi in a bed, kind of in need of help or medical help, as they are all walking closer. The other person we saw with Lucia, then I'm just forgetting her name, is like holding onto Lavi's hand and being like, please hold on. The history that the bookmen have been waiting to record, assumably the end of the Holy War, will need to be recorded by you. You'll be the one to see the end of this. And the key word is the final word, bookman. So she is calling Lavi bookman. And as we all know, and I've heard so many times in the last few chapters, Bookman Jr. is what Lavi's always called, because the real Bookman is Bookman. So does this mean that Bookman has passed away and Lavi has officially become the new Bookman? Something that I do believe is realistic, given the fact that the last time we have seen Lavi and Bookman outside of flashbacks is that Lavi and Bookman were captured by the Noah as they were trying to get information from them on the 14th. And they continuously torture Lavi because threatening Bookman with he doesn't have enough time left in this world to train up a third disciple following the original Bookman Jr.'s death and then Lavi's death, and waiting for Lavi because Bookman is born. It's not like somebody can become Bookman. It's you are born into being the Bookman, or the Bookman Jr., more specifically, trained up by Bookman and become the next Bookman. So I can imagine that there is just a chance that Bookman potentially gives up his life in order to get Lavi out of the Noah's hands, potentially seizing the opportunity of when all the Noahs learn what happened 35 years ago. As they are talking to Apocryphus, they probably aren't guarding Bookman and Bookman Jr., and he gets Lavi out of there, sends him to the Campbell Mansion, and he passes away. And as mentioned earlier in this chapter, Bookmen might have their own techniques that aren't just innocence-related abilities. And if that's the case, maybe he can hold off multiple Noahs at once using those, but he really doesn't want to resort to using those, and that potentially is why we've only seen Bookman and Lavi use their innocence as their ways of attacking. We'll have to wait and see. I do feel like it would suck a bit if Bookman has passed away, given that we just learned all this information about Bookman Jr. and Bookman's relationship, and that there is some unresolved feelings there that Alan might be able to reciprocate over to Bookman. Had Bookman is still alive, and we'll just have to wait and see on that. Another interesting thing here is we do see, as Lavi is fainting, seemingly Bookman Jr. is looking over him. Not in the panel, but in like a side panel. And we did see this as well in the side chapter, I think it was 253.5, in which when Lavi is like fading, he tries to help him from seeing the light. And we don't really know the true essence of what Bookman Jr. has become. We know he's a part of Alan to some extent, but he potentially could be just a being of Helix energy as well that is maybe watching over Lavi to ensure, like, while he left the Bookmen, that the Bookmen are kept in good hands. I know this chapter had a lot. Once again, I'm sorry that this review is coming out so much later than the chapter did. But if anyone still wants to hear this and is listening, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the chapter, where you think this will go. Potentially, is Lavi the one who shares the information of the secret history of the war? And does Atuda from Link heal Lavi? Does something from Alan and Bookman, the previous Bookman Jr., heal Lavi? We'll just have to wait and see, and thank you for listening. Have a good one.